welcome back to another episode of the Rebel Love podcast. Today, I am super excited to speak to one of our regular Rebel Love writers, Quean Mo. So Quean Mo reached out to the blog. I'm not really sure exactly how. We're going to ask her about that. And we had some back and forth, and I asked her if she would be willing to share some of her story with our readers. She told me a little bit about her life, and it was really awesome, and she was very open. So when I first received Quean Mo's first piece of writing, I noticed that not only is she live a really fascinating life, but she's also incredibly well-spoken, intelligent, and an excellent writer, way better writer than me, which is why I was like, I need to get this woman to write for Rebel Love. I'm super excited to have her here today. Welcome, Quean Mo.
Thank you so much. No pressure, right? The well-spoken part.
Well, I was like, I read your piece and I was like, oh my gosh, she's so good. She's such a good writer. And I was like, oh, wow, Ruth is really, really beautiful. I wonder if I can kind of snap her up. And I did.
No, I so appreciate that. And it's been so great. And it's also been a challenge. It's definitely pushed my limits with writing too. You're making me a better writer.
Because I know you work with closely, actually, the closest writer that works closely with our editor, Michael, who's amazing. He's also made me a better writer too. So he pushes us around in a good way.
It's good to have one of those on the team.
Yeah, that's right. So before we get into anything, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up finding the Rebel Love blog?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually have been a sexuality blogger for Call of the Queen for, oh my gosh, 2 years now. And I kind of put that aside for a little while and was just doing my own thing and was working in Georgia, actually, United States. I am now in France, but I'm sure we'll get to that after. And I was just curious. I mean, I'm always researching sexuality, and I was curious if there were any writing opportunities outside of my own blog. And I'm not sure exactly how I came across Rebel Love. It was kind of meant to be. It was random stars. And it was interesting because I found you. I don't even remember if it was on Instagram first or it was just me surfing the web. Came across your form. You said you were looking for writers, and the rest is history. I'm not even sure if you remember the first conversation we kind of had, but
I'm sure you were really sweet. You emailed me and you're like, hey, I love your blog. And, I'd love to kind of, I don't know if you actually said you'd like to be involved. You said, oh, maybe we could do a collaboration. Actually, that's what you said with your blog. And I was like, yeah, cool. Yeah, send me some. Because at that point I was like, oh my God, somebody's emailing me. Yay. Because I just started, right? The blog had just kind of started.
And I had no idea. I was like, oh my gosh, if this person picks me, it's going to be so great.
Oh man, I was stoked. I was like, this is great. Gosh, if I have this quality of writers just coming to me out of the blue, I'm like, it's making my job so much easier. It's funny actually, because the same way we found you is the same way we found our designer. We were reaching out to people on Reddit. And she's like, oh my God, I'd love to be involved. And I was like, oh, cool. Just send me your portfolio, thinking, that it wouldn't be that good. And she sends it to me and I was like, damn, I love this chick. She's like, totally gets what the style I want.
Your vision.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, we got to get her. We got to get her because she fits. So yeah. Awesome.
Well, I feel like positive platforms like yours, you attract talent because you have it too. So we appreciate you just as much.
Thank you. Yeah, it makes it so much easier when people come to you and you don't have to go and find them. And the cool thing is, I'm the only one in Australia. Everybody else, my whole team is across the world. Yeah. I have America,
international
France.
Love people.
Yeah, America, France, Canada. Where else? The Philippines. So,
nice.
And Australia. So we have a global team.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. Amazing.
So the reason why I asked you here today, Mo, is because you talk a lot about your life on the blog, and you're very open. And what I like about that is, one, you're willing to live like kind of like and I'm putting this in quotation marks, alternative. But I don't, I think everything's alternative these days. But that it's like
anything outside of the box, right? Like
you live a really super fun life, and you're really willing to talk about it in a very kind of detailed way, which I really love. And we have a few Rebel Love super fans actually.
Hey guys.
Sorry, I'm going to say that again. We have a few Quean Mo super fans, not Rebel Love super fans.
Oh, no, I hate both.
And they totally like geek out on all your stuff every week. They're like,
Oh,
actually, I recently did a webinar and they were, someone emailed in and they were like, is Queen Mo going to be there?
oh yeah. That makes my heart is warm right now. That's so cool.
That's so nice, isn't it? It is nice. It is nice when your material resonates. So,
Yeah.
so tell us a little bit about, you know, I know you wrote a piece about kind of your becoming story on the blog. Can you go into that a little bit for the people who haven't read it?
Yeah, absolutely. And stop me if I go too far because I tend to do tangents, but it's been interesting. So my husband and I, we actually just celebrated our 6-year anniversary 4 days ago. No, I'm sorry. It was yesterday. What am I saying? We're the 27th. I've lost track of time. And we've been married for 2 years. We've been together for 6 years. And it's interesting because when we first got together, I was only 7 months out of a 5-year relationship, and it was a pretty toxic relationship. I feel like almost everybody has a story of some sort of toxic beginning, you know? And I learned a lot about myself, but I also, going into this relationship with James, my husband, I was carrying a lot of baggage. And a lot of that baggage had to do with jealousy, being afraid of other women. And it was interesting because he was the first person that I've been with romantically that kind of gave me the space to just figure myself out. And if you've read from my Becoming article, we went away. I think it was about 2 years, 3 years into our relationship. We went to Portugal together with one of his best friends, and I found out his friend had never been to a strip joint. And for me, coming from North America, I'm like, what grown ass man has never been to a strip joint? I don't know. So I'm like, we need to check that box immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And so we go, and while we're there, I kind of like caught sight of this, like, just this gorgeous Portuguese woman. And I started feeling so insecure. I was like, oh no, like all those like jealousy things started bubbling up. And I was like, I don't want my guy to be here anymore. And I started panicking. And then all of a sudden, this like really slow, kind of sensual song came on. And this other woman took the stage. And all of a sudden, I had this like just calm run through me. I don't even know how to describe it, but it was like, for the first time and for a long time, I was like, I'm not even worried about him because I want to see this. Like, I want to watch her. I was so attracted to her. And it just, I can't explain it. It just did something to my brain where, like, from that moment on, I was like, I have forever been interested in women too, but I think because of the way what we're role modeled, like my parents have this amazing, loving, heterosexual, monogamous relationship. I just kind of followed in those footsteps. And then having a toxic relationship where I was jealous of all these women, I kind of closed that part of myself. When it came to women, it was more about comparing myself or being threatened. And for the first time being with my now husband, I was like, holy shit, I'm actually kind of turned on by this, and it just opened this door to like exploring that part of my sexuality, and voila, here we are. I'm sure we'll speak about more what happened the next steps, but it was like an epiphany. Like, it was just like this sexual epiphany, and I was like, okay, I'm good. I feel the jealousy just kind of fell away, and I came into my own.
Mm-hmm.
It
It's
was
interesting.
really,
It's interesting that you talk about the jealousy kind of falling away. I feel like, and let me know if this resonates with you. Like,
yeah.
when you realize that, hang on, I've got the trust. So I trust my partner and I trust myself. So I don't need to be jealous. Because I don't know about
Absolutely.
you, but I feel like the times that I've been jealous, I said to my friend, I don't think I'm a very jealous person. She's like, oh yeah, you are. I was like, oh, really? And I was like, but I
think
feel like that happens when I don't trust someone, when I really trust someone, I'm like, do what you want, if that's the agreement we
absolutely.
have.
Exactly. And I definitely think it depends on the partner. And I think that every relationship is different.
Mm-hmm.
But absolutely, like I said, the one thing that I have with James that I'd never experienced before is he kind of took a step back. I guess when I've been with men, and this is just from my experience, this is not a generalization because there are incredible human beings out there. My experience with my relationships with men, there has been a sense of control and almost like somebody has to have the upper hand. And usually, in my experience, it was the man who always wanted, which caused this power dynamic, which left me feeling insecure and not trusting, or feeling like they didn't trust me. So there was no room to explore anything outside of that because I always had to reassure them or they had to reassure me. Where with James, it's like, oh no, I'm taking a step back. Like, I'm good. If you're happy, I'm happy. And I'm going to be straight up with you. From the beginning, everything was on the table with him. So we had that, like you said, that space to just be like, okay, we know each other, we trust each other, and we can be who we are in that space. And it's a different world if you've experienced the opposite than that.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like James gets to see the actual deeper version of you because you're really able to be your full self, and vice versa, I guess.
Absolutely. We're not overthinking things in that way. So it's really, it's a beautiful thing. And it's interesting because if you were to speak to him from the moment we met to now, he'll be like, oh my gosh, if the Quean Mo now spoke to the Quean Mo 6 years ago, she'd smack her because I'm a totally different person regarding like my own confidence and like how I accept myself. And that plays into the sexuality and all of that. It's a I want to say snake eating its own tail, but it sounds so negative, but you know what I mean? It's a snowball effect of just becoming who you are when you have that positive, encouraging space.
Yeah, the freedom. Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit more. So you were with you saw this woman, you kind of were enamored with her for a second, and you were like, oh my gosh, this is like, the jealousy dropped away. And then what happened? So up to that point, you said something that really stuck with me. You said, I'd seen my parents have that kind of heterotypical, I should say, relationship. And that's interesting because this is what most people do. They go, okay, this is how my parents are, so this is how I should be, or this is what society says, so this is what I should be. And they don't really give it much thought. You know, everyone's like monogamous. That's the kind of relationship they're having. So what happened next?
Yeah, so we were in Portugal for like another couple of days, and his friend ended up leaving early. He had to go back to France for work, because we were living in France at this time as well. And I didn't say anything to James. I just kind of let it, I don't know. I wanted to see how I felt. I was like, okay, is this just like a momentary thing where I'm gonna like in an hour be like, oh, I'm done with it, you know? But it just like, I don't know, kind of ended up consuming me. And a couple days after that particular evening, we were on a flight, and I get very sick on flights. Like motion sickness, and like any moving vehicle, I'm done. I'm usually asleep. I couldn't stop thinking. I was wide awake, like, and the only thought that was in my head was, I want to see him. It like turned into this thing where I'm like, I want to see him with a woman. And there was a flight attendant that I was like, oh my gosh, this woman is just stunning. And then I got kind of like, it was weird. It was like obsessive thoughts all of a sudden. And then it just kept going and building in my brain. I created this huge fantasy in less than like 48 hours. And when we landed in France, we had to wait for his friend for a couple of hours to pick us up. And I remember just like taking my journal and writing. And he was just like, okay, he's used to this. He's like, okay, this is not abnormal. She's just, he gave me a minute to just like, whatever. And then I passed it to him and I said, I need you to read this. And I can't remember exactly what it said, but it was this little piece about a woman giving her husband to another, a woman giving her husband to another woman. And he was like, okay, that's interesting. And I was like, I want to do this with you. And his face in that moment, my husband plays poker and he had a great poker face because I don't think he knew how to respond. He's like, yeah, I'm sure in his brain, he's like, I gotta be very careful right now. So it was we kind of talked a little bit about it, but I wasn't really 100% sure what it meant exactly. But that opened a door to like literally until now we still speak about it and what it means. So yeah, it was it was interesting. And if I can say this one thing, when I started writing my blog, because it's a lot of my articles were kind of covering these steps, these different steps I went through in discovering this part of myself. A lot of people, a lot of men came to me and reached out and were like, your husband's so lucky, and it's interesting that people have this idea that just because I like other women, he's living the best life, when he actually struggled quite a bit with it.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of fear on his side, a lot of uncertainty, and it wasn't just me like being, I want you to fuck other women. He'd be like, okay. He didn't know if he wanted to do it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a process there too.
Mm-hmm. So is it fair to say that you're in an open relationship now? Or what kind of relationship? How would you define your relationship now, if at all?
Yeah, I think right now, it's interesting. Open relationship. I've always said we're in a semi-open relationship. I'm not sure what the proper term would be, but basically what we do. The relationship we have is, if I'm someone who we both need connection, like we really need to, it's not just about getting it done, like,
right.
And our experiences with other women have always been very organic. We go out and we happen to meet someone we connect with, and then we have an evening with them, or we continue talking, and then we have a sexual moment with them. We always do stuff together. We never go separately, at least not at this point in our relationship.
Right.
Whether we get there one day, I'm not putting pressure on it. But as of right now, the word open for me means that him and I are open to sharing our sexual space with other people that we both feel comfortable and connected with, but we always share the experience together.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I have another friend like that. So prior to this relationship with James, had James been in a relationship like this before? Because I know that you said that you hadn't, because you came from a very toxic relationship.
Oh, yeah, no.
So he hadn't either. So you kind of walked into this style of living together.
Exactly.
Oh,
yes.
that's awesome. That's kind of exciting too, isn't it? To, because I mean,
explore it and discover together. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think I said on another episode that I feel like people in relationships that open themselves up sexually to other partners are addicted to growth, because you're always having to have conversations and explore your feelings and be very open about how you feel all the time, because otherwise you're going to run into issues there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's so much bonding that happens during that time.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Let's talk about that. Tell me a little bit about the bonding, because I feel like that's the most exciting part, right? The getting emotionally closer. Because I've always thought,
oh my gosh,
one of my exes who I was very, very close to, I love sex, and I always felt like sex was like such a cherry on top. Like we had sex because our souls wanted, I know it sounds really corny, but our souls wanted to be closer, and that's what it was. So it was this extension. It wasn't just this like getting off thing, and it was so much higher. Like every sexual experience was so much better because of that connection.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my God. Well, and I think that's why we also, when we bring other people in, there has to be a connection. We, even separately before we knew each other, I mean, I made some mistakes. I didn't always focus on that, and that's for whole other reasons, socialization and all of that. But even him, like so one thing I should mention is he's a dominant. He is very much, what is the word? There's different levels of fetishism, and I believe it's optional, preferred, and exclusive. And if you're exclusive, it means like you kind of you require that in order to, and I would say he's between preference and exclusive. So he's somewhere in the area of like, he does not enjoy as much having sex with someone who isn't into BDSM, who isn't a submissive.
Right.
And so just connecting on that, and then, I mean, with BDSM on its own, like the amount of communication you have to have, because there can be more risk in people feeling used, people getting hurt, people, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's interesting because exactly what you said, the speaking about it, especially the sex part, just the talking about it, it's like a foreplay. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's exciting.
and absolutely. And then also because of opening the relationship in the way that we do, you become more of a team. And I feel like a lot of people that I know, one of the major issues that or one of the things that I see most often is that people, like I said earlier with my last relationship, there's like this power dynamic. Someone has to have the upper hand to feel secure in their relationship. And we learned from the very beginning, also because he would not allow it to be in our relationship, that we're on the same team. And if you can go into anything like that, looking out for each other in their relationship, oh my gosh, it's like, you're like, I don't know, it just fuses you together. It's an incredible feeling. So
Totally.
yeah, no, you're fine.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about BDSM, just because there may be some people listening that don't know what that is. So can you talk a little bit about what that is and yeah, like how that conversation came up? Because you said he's in between preference and exclusive. Gosh. So yeah, what happened there? Was that before this?
This is like one of my favorite topics.
Okay, perfect. Let's do it.
So yeah, so BDSM, first of all, it stands for, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get this not wrong, but bondage, domination, submission, and sadomasochism, or domination can also be discipline. So he is the dom, I am the submissive. He is more sadist and I'm more masochist, which means he enjoys inflicting pain where I enjoy receiving pain. Now, just want to put it out there that it's all role playing. There's no real things happening. He knows my boundaries. I've laid them out for him. Everything is enthusiastically consented to. So it's so interesting because I got kind of in an argument with a man on Twitter one day because I shared this story and it startled him. Because on our first date, we went to a little pub, like a local pub brewery near my place, and we sat down. And because we both are very sexual and very open about sexuality, like just in general, it naturally came up between us. And so I learned within like the first 3 hours of sitting with James that he was a dominant. And he didn't just come out and be like, so I'm a dominant and that's just the way it's going to be. He shared experiences that obviously implied that, and then we got into a deeper conversation about it. The man on Twitter was like, so basically he told you he wanted to beat you up and you agreed. And I was like, that's not how it worked out at all. Like, right. And there's so much misunderstanding around what this means. And I, up to that point, had literally been begging the men I was with in the past to just like even spank me. And it's not for everybody, and I understand that maybe I was a little too harsh on some people from my past. I'm sorry if you're listening, but but like, or hair clearing, and then of course 50 Shades of Grey came out, and I have my own opinions about that now, but during that moment I was so like just wanting something intense like that. And that when he told me this, to this day he's like, your eyes lit up, like you just were like, yes, please. Like I didn't even have to say anything. He's like, all right, I'm down. She's into it, like DTF for sure. It was so yeah, so just like I think between us, because sex is such a natural thing that we speak about, it kind of came easier than a lot of people, and we're very lucky in that way. But yeah, by first date, like we both had it on the table. And I appreciated that about him too, the honesty, because him being that honest allowed me to be like, oh, I can be this honest as well. And Yeah, it
Actually,
helps.
so how long did you go kind of meeting each other and kind of being in each other's space emotionally before you did anything sexual?
2 weeks.
Nice, nice.
I know exactly because we met in Toronto, Canada. He was in school. I was living at home writing a book, and I think, yeah, we met. We went on our first date. We're basically inseparable, and then he took me away to Niagara Falls for like our 2 week anniversary.
Oh, that's sweet. That's
And I know, and he even got a room that had a heart-shaped jacuzzi. It was so cheesy, but hilarious. It was
oh
like
my,
one of those like those like really trashy like honeymoon suites like Motel Las Vegas. It was hands down like one of those. It was amazing. And I was terrified because like I said, I had been in a 5 year relationship. I hadn't slept with anybody else. I was feeling insecure about my own body and myself at that time. And he was just like, I brought some handcuffs. That's all I'm going to use. If you're okay with it, lie back and I'm going to do the work. And the rest was, yeah,
that's it.
it
You were
was
together.
it was great. I was like, sold.
Awesome. Yeah, this is going to work
Yeah,
out
it's going to be fine.
fine. Nice, nice. Awesome. So that was 6 years ago, and
Mhm.
now you've had a bit of an adventurous life. So how long after was that time period that you described about going to Portugal, from meeting? So like, and what happened in that space of getting to know each other and kind of really deciding? Because I know you
Yeah.
said you were dealing a lot with your baggage and you were dealing a lot with, you know, acknowledging these feelings of jealousy and stuff. So yeah, can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. That is like opening a whole can of worms. First, I would just like to point out that I am not drinking wine at what time is it there?
Oh, nobody knows what time it is. So I'm drinking coffee.
Exactly.
It
Oh, so
is,
sorry.
it's 9 a.m. in Australia at the moment. And where are you at the moment? You want to tell everyone where
I'm in
you
the
are?
south of France and it is 11 p.m. here. So cheers.
Yeah. So I'm drinking my coffee and she's drinking her wine. So yeah.
Yes. And the next part of the story needs a little bit of wine. So
Yeah.
bear with me. But yeah, no. So between the moment we met in Portugal, so it was about 3 years. And during that time, so I had developed an eating disorder in my last relationship,
Mhm.
and I was bulimic for 3 years. And around the time I met James, honestly, I think it was like 3 months before I had told my parents and was like, I'm getting help. I'm not living this way. It's I'm out of my relationship with my ex. I need to like a radical change. Like I know this isn't who I am, and I just I need to come back to myself, you know? So I went through that. And so I to this day don't know how James put up with certain things that I did because I'm a very easygoing person, but because of all that, I had a lot of triggers surrounding food, surrounding my own little things. He's French and he comes from a culture where the food culture is so strong,
Mhm.
and he has an idea of how people should eat and when people should eat and what they should be nourishing their body with. It's very healthy. And for me, I would want to eat chips and dip for dinner, for example. And he would be concerned, not because just because of how he was raised, you know, it's
Mhm.
the conditioning. And for me, I was like, oh, he doesn't want me to eat because he's scared I'm gonna get fat. Like those were the
Oh,
messages and I would fight with
interesting.
him. Like I would, oh man, like there were moments where I just walked out. Like I literally just walked out of the apartment. So again, even in those moments, I was very lucky that I found a partner who was like, you know what? I understand that you're going through something, and even if I don't understand it, here's the space. If
Mhm.
there's anything I can do to help you, let me know. And my my triggers just slowly dissolved. I mean, I probably still have a few, but it's fine. I've come a long way.
Don't we all?
And yeah, exactly, right? No one's perfect.
No, they are not.
Yeah. And because of that, I don't know, I was also very curious about him and wanted to get to know him on like in his past. A lot of people are afraid of getting to know their partner's past because again, the whole comparison game. But because of my openness on sexuality, and maybe also a little bit ego, being like, I need to make sure I was the best he ever had. Like,
Right.
tell me about your sex life. And he would tell me his experiences, and I would be like, oh, this is actually kind of turning me on. So it was already slowly starting, even in
That's
the
so funny.
moments that I was insecure and going through my own recovery. So yeah, from the moment we met to 3 years in, like, for me, it was really, I was probably a lot more self-centered than I am now, because I had to do so much work. And I'm just very lucky that I had a partner that was patient enough to kind of, be like, this is okay. I know I accept you for who you are, and I love you for who you are. And I know that at the end of this, everything's going to be okay, and we're going to be even stronger because of it. And it worked.
Yeah. So
It
let's talk a
worked.
little bit about, like, I think what I'm really hearing that's kind of significant for me is that he gave you the
Yeah.
space you needed. So what
Yes.
does giving you the space you need look like? Like, what did that behavior look like from him?
Wow, it's such an interesting thing, because it's hard to explain it. Okay, for example, I am somebody who I require physical touch, and I know that to some people I can be very needy, if you want to call it that. Again, it depends on who you're with, the partner, and what everybody requires in their relationship. I'm someone who needs physical touch, and I remember lying in bed with him one night, and I was like koalaing him. He was just like attached to him. Sorry, trying to make like an Australia pun, but no, it didn't work.
Reference it,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
No, I get it. A little koala clamping onto
I
you.
was just attached to him, and I felt like he wasn't returning that. And so I started panicking, and I was like, I don't understand. Like, I want to be close to you, but I feel like you don't want to be close to me. And he said to me, he's like, it's okay that you want to be close to me. And even if I don't need it, I'm here for you. You just have to tell me. You know what I mean? And then because I told him, he qualified me back. So it was one of those moments where, like, just the fact that, like, he was open about, just communicate your needs to me and I will do what I can to to fulfill those needs without crossing any of my own boundaries,
Right.
or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It for me was like the team thing, and what can we do for each other to make us feel good and accept each other in that moment, without making like, someone could have easily been like, oh my gosh, this is exhausting, like, I just don't want to be, you know what I mean, touch right now. And that would have been fair if someone felt that way, but he was so receptive to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one example. I'm sure I could find many, but I don't know, it was just so open and non-judgmental and ready for me to become the person that I wanted to be, and was excited about that. Was excited to see that as well. He wasn't afraid of it, where a lot of people might feel threatened by their partner changing. And it's like, no, if you can accept that about them and go through that process with them, it's going to be better at the end. You know what I mean?
He held that
So trying
space
to
for you.
yeah,
Yeah. I
absolutely.
always feel like, like what you said about, like, communicating your needs. Like, if you just tell me, then I can help you.
Absolutely.
Because I'm always like that. I'm like, give me the information I need for me to make my own decision, because I don't want you to make my decision for me. But if you don't give me all the information I need to make my decision, then you're taking that opportunity away from me. That's how I always kind of see it. And so, it's like a doctor. If you don't give a doctor all the information, they can't make the right decision. And it's the same. I feel the same in your own life. Like,
100%.
yeah, I think it's respectful in a relationship. But here's the thing, for that to happen, it requires you as a person to be okay with hearing things that you may not want to hear, or that are hard to hear. And so it sounds like he's just done a lot of that work. Would that be fair?
Oh, 100%. I call him the alien. He's like my alien husband, because I've never met someone who's so self-aware, but at the same time doesn't think about themselves. Like, do you know what I mean? I feel like so many people are stuck in their head, like, am I okay? Do I look okay? Do I feel okay? How am I acting in front of people? Where he's like, I know me. I love me. I'm okay with me. So I'm gonna stop thinking about me. Like, I'm here and that's cool. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and having a partner who's like that is also so refreshing, because when I'm anxious, it brings that anxiety down.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, yeah. I'm gonna explore this more, because I'm curious of, like, if I can think of later, like, more examples and how he does that for me. But
Yeah, maybe we could write a piece about that. That sounds like an interesting topic.
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah, because
100%.
I feel like I used to work as a behavioral therapist, and one of the things that we would say
Yes.
with children with autism, and one of the things my supervisor would say a lot was when they were very high functioning, so they're aware, but they needed to learn social skills. They talk about, okay, they don't have the language, so we need to give them the language. We need to model the
Right.
language. We need to give them the language. And when she said that, I was like, all these things just clicked into place for me, because I was like, this is what everybody needs, not just people
Oh
with
my gosh.
autism. I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like, I found that when people give me the language of, like, for example, here's a really good example, is if you go on a date with someone and you're not feeling the vibe, how do you politely say thanks but no thanks? And so
Right.
I was like, I need somebody to give me that language, because my goal is not to hurt them, but my goal is to communicate very clearly where I stand, so that I'm honoring myself, but doing it in a way that, and my style can sometimes be a little bit
Yeah.
too forward. So I was like, I need some help with this. I need somebody to give me
Oh,
that language. And I found
yes.
that really helpful. So this is kind of like that, how is he holding space for you, and what does that specifically look like? So
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. And language is so important. But I think even also, for your example, the self-awareness of needing the language. So many people, I think, come from a place of ego, and obviously there's past traumas or baggage or whatever it is, where we all grow up and are raised in different environments with different role modeling and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
which plays huge parts. And the idea of just not knowing how to respond to people, or not wanting to respond to people, or not doing the inner work first. And I think that was also, in our situation, helped me, is that it wasn't, I give him a lot of credit and I'm very grateful for that. But at the same time, if I wasn't ready to do the inner work, like you said, like we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I would have been stunted. I would have held onto those triggers. I would have fought him every turn. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what a shame that would have been.
Yeah, totally. Because
So
yeah, I feel like you've met the perfect match to go through the journey of life together. Like in the koala moment that you mentioned, what came to me
koala
when you
moment, I love that.
well, the koala moment,
Yes.
that conversation that you had. I always think that, people always talk about, oh, when this happens, then I'm going to be this person. When this happens, I'm going to be this person. But in those
Yes.
moments, in those koala moments, that is life. That is
A
happening right
100%.
now. So it's like, you're in it, in this moment, this is it,
Yeah, and how you
all we have is
respond to
now.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how you respond to that is either going to help you or keep you in the same place you're already in. So, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that is where the hard work is, because that's when you literally have to fight yourself, because you have one voice being like, no, like attack, like the fight, the fight, flight, or freeze. Well, instead of doing those things, just
Be. Yeah.
be and just breathe and be like, okay, what do I need and what do I want, and how can I communicate? Like, even if you just say one word, to help a person out, it can be so scary and so hard. But man, at least that first little step, the
Mm-hmm.
change it can make,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's incredible. Yeah. Human
Yeah.
brain is so complicated.
Yeah. And the energy as well. I feel like every time those koala moments happen and you communicate, you go a little bit deeper into each other's kind of energy fields. And then the bond gets closer. It's kind of like, have you seen Avatar? I know this is so corny, but
Yes.
when they put the little tail thing, they call it a halo or something. I don't know, but they make that connection. I was like, oh my God, I love this moment in this movie because it's so symbolic of like exactly. And I remember watching it, and I'm such a sucker for like sappy movies. So I was like, oh my
I
gosh.
am too. Don't be ashamed.
and I was like, yes, that's what, like, I remember thinking I've had a relationship where I felt that close.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that was just such a great, I mean, I don't have a tail or anything, like that.
It's like, I wish I did, but another life.
Do I?
Guess it depends on what you're into. I mean,
yeah, that's right.
But no, I completely understand what you're saying. It's incredible. And I think a part of that comes from people's ability to be vulnerable. Like, I think that's really, for me, the foundation of it. If you can sit there and ask yourself, like, being vulnerable, how does that make me feel? If it scares the shit out of you, okay, that's a sign that there's work that needs to be done. And I think people are afraid of vulnerability depending on the situation and what's happening. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not perfect, trust me. James was hearing this conversation and be like, okay. Like, yeah. There are definitely moments, but I think the vulnerability is a huge piece of me telling James that I wanted him to have sex with another woman. Like, I wanted to bring, that was terrifying. It doesn't, I mean, and people might be like, okay, yeah, but it was scary. And
like you said, for him as well, he's like, wait a second. My wife, oh no, at the time you were not his wife. My girlfriend's telling me.
No, I was,
Yeah, my girlfend's telling me she wants me to sleep with somebody else in front of her. Okay.
I know, right?
Okay.
Because he could have been like, oh, the stories he could have been telling himself during that moment, like, is it because she doesn't have sex with me? Am I not good enough? Like, what? Like, why does? You know what I mean?
Yeah. What's this about?
Exactly.
Yeah. So okay. So 2 questions. Did you go into that? And then what happened? What happened when the first time that you saw your partner have sex with somebody else in front of you? What happened?
I'm sorry. What was the first question? I didn't.
What was the first question?
Go into that.
Yeah. Can you go into like him, the question of him asking you, you know, what is this about? Why? Like, where is this coming from? Let's explore this a little bit more.
Yeah. So, he's an incredibly thorough human being. So he basically wanted to rip this apart. He wanted to know the ins and outs, exactly what he said, where it came from, how long I've been feeling this way, if there's any moments in our past that I possibly could have shown signs. Like, he needed to know everything. And there were moments where I was like, oh my God, can we stop talking about this? But for him, he was genuinely afraid that if we went through with it and I saw him have sex with another woman, so to add another layer, I wanted to watch it. It wasn't just him leaving the room and having sex. Like, I wanted to be there and watching it. I'm a cuck queen. I like enjoy seeing him have sex with women. Anyway, I'm a little bit of a perv, it's fine. And his genuine fear was like, okay, well, if I do this and Mo realizes, oh my gosh, this is horrible, am I ever going to be able to look at him again, let alone have sex with him again? How much damage could this cause? And for him, he always said from the beginning of our relationship, sex will never be more important than love. Sex is incredibly important, but he will never choose sex over our love. And so there were so many conversations. He spoke to me so much about it that we had a fight at some point, or an argument, I don't know what you want to call it, where I said to him, I was like, I don't feel like this is my fantasy anymore. I feel like it's yours, because you are doing so much research and you're talking about it so much that I don't feel like, for the first time, I have space to just figure it out on my own. And he said, good, that was what I wanted. And I was like, what are you talking? And he's just like, because now I know I've gotten you a point where you're like, fuck this. I'm sorry, am I allowed to swear?
Yes, totally.
I think I've sworn already.
You can totally swear.
Yeah, I was like, forget this. And he's like, okay, he knew in his brain, I've pushed her to the edge and now she's not going to want to talk about it. But if it comes up again, and if she still wants to pursue it, I know it's real.
Right.
Does that make sense? He like pushed
Yeah.
me to my limit, and I was like, he's a little bit manipulative that way.
Well, I guess he wanted to be sure, because he didn't want to change the
Oh.
dynamic. If something happened, it could have really had the potential to change a huge dynamic of the relationship. And, you know, so
Absolutely.
it was kind of just
Yeah,
like,
bring
I
someone
don't,
else in.
yeah, I don't want to lose you. So let's like really dig into this before we make that decision. So there was a lot of thought that went into it. It wasn't just, because it's interesting. I feel like there's a lot of kind of outside judgment of what people think about people who choose to open up their relationships like this. And so it's really great to hear this like process that you went through.
Oh yeah. And it took, oh my gosh, I think we spent around like 6 months just going through that, and me wanting to strangle him. and then within like a week of that, I was like, yeah, no, my brain's still there. Like I'm not changing. This is what it is. And we went to, when was the first time so the first time I saw him have sex with a woman, so we went to the same friend that we were in Portugal with. We went to his place in France. He was spending a night with his girlfriend at the time, so we had the place to ourselves. He lived in like a party town in France, like Rennes. It's called Rennes, France. Anyway, I don't know if anybody's heard of it, but it's just this cool little place, really hip, tons of younger people. And we were like, let's just go out and not plan anything and just see what happens. And we weren't even thinking about sex. We were just talking about like having an evening together. And we walked by this one bar, and there's these people on the patio. There's a table of about like 10 people around our age. And this one guy looks at me. He's like, you come join us. So random. And I was like, okay, well, I guess we're joining them, because we said we would just wing it. And there was a woman at the table who I didn't really see her at first, but as the night went on, I was like, okay, she's actually really kind of cute. And James was speaking to her a lot more than I was. And one thing led to the other, and we were drinking and just connecting. And I was like, yep, this is like, I'm good. I'm ready for this. And we ended up going back to her place. And as much as it wasn't, like I said, he's a dom, as it wasn't a dom situation, because there's a lot of conversation that has to happen before. And this was like a very kind of in the moment, spontaneous hookup that, which was interesting, because I never thought I would have not that I never thought, I wasn't sure if I'd want to see him have sex with a woman outside of the BDSM. And I did. And I was like, I don't know. It was nice. At the end of it, actually was more involved than I thought that I would be. I really, really cared about her, which was interesting, because I kind of forgot about him for a little while.
Wow, interesting.
And it was really, and then at the end of it, like it solidified more for me my attraction to women, because I just wanted to, like I said, I'm the koala. I just wanted to cuddle her, like, which was perfect for us, because he was like, we almost kind of took roles where he was very active during, of course, and then at the end it was her and I. And it was an incredibly intimate experience, obviously, but also for a first experience where it wasn't like the intense BDSM, it really just reassured me that, like, yeah, this is this is just the first step in like a whole other world that we're about to discover. And we still speak to that woman today. Like, that's the thing too, is like, sex doesn't ruin friendships. For us, like, it opens doors. It's really, I don't know. I love that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you use that analogy as well, of opening doors. Yeah.
There's no need to like just, we had sex with you, so bye.
Yeah, see you later.
I think it's like, they're still human and they have a heart, and we shared something. And I mean, obviously it doesn't work for everybody, but like for us, I don't know.
It works.
It could build into a good friendship. So
yeah, totally. I've heard that a lot, actually. Couples who have lover friends who come into their relationships being really close friends. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. So just before we wrap this up, I know I
Yeah,
could talk to
absolutely.
you totally all day.
We'll
There's so
have
much to
to
talk about
schedule
here.
another one.
Yeah, totally, totally. I just wanted to like kind of, if someone's kind of thinking about having this kind of conversation with their partner, what do you have any kind of advice or language? Like we talked about giving the language before, any language to prompt that initial conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, I know that communication can be difficult for people, especially if it's not something they're used to in their relationship. And I think that opening the conversation first, telling the person like I reassuring them that like I'm interested in this for my like own personal self-exploration. I want to share it with you because I love you, and I think that if we do this together, it can bring us together. Like they say like the compliment sandwich the the criticism between the compliment will sandwich the confession, not confession, that's a terrible way to say it, but like if you're uncomfortable, like make sure that you're reassuring your partner and not putting pressure on it. One thing that during our kind of going through this process is I realized that I was the person that didn't want to go as fast once we were both comfortable with it. And it's always making sure that you're going at the pace of the slower partner. So even if that means you have to have 25 conversations before you even, I don't know, take like a tiny step. But yeah, absolutely. Communicate, reassure each other, understand why you want to do it, because I believe that if you are looking to open your relationship to fix something, I know it can work for people. I have heard that it has worked for people. But if you're honest with yourself about that, I think that it can actually be beneficial instead of just being like, I want to try this with you and lying to your partner yourself and just doing it to fix something without them understanding that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Like you said earlier, just give the knowledge. Make sure everybody has the knowledge, and then start small. Like we got on FetLife. We started looking at video, like at porn together to see how I felt about just him viewing that kind of stuff. We went out and started just like people watching together to see how we felt about each other, saying, oh, I think that person's hot, or that person's sexy, or I like this about that person. Engage your comfort levels with stuff. At some point you might be like, nope, I'm good. It was better as a fantasy.
Yeah. Something's coming up for me. I'm feeling this, because I guess it's kind of like real-time commentary on how you're feeling in that moment. If you're people watching and your partner says, oh, I like that woman for XYZ reasons, and then you're like, hang on, something happened inside me then. Let's talk.
Well, it's so funny because and I'm sorry, I'll be quick because I know we have to wrap up, but for example, when we were working in the Alps, we were working in a hotel, and we ended up going to this local bar a lot, and there was this one waitress who was stunning. She had dark hair and blue eyes. And I realized at that point in my life, I didn't want him going anywhere near girls with dark hair and blue eyes. I don't know what it was. I think I had a moment in high school with a woman like that like I felt threatened by, and my body clearly hadn't like metabolized that like whatever it was. And I was like, she's off limits. Even though I was like, she's so sexy, I was like, she's off limits, because I felt something was going on inside of me, and I needed to deal with that before we could pursue anyone with dark hair and blue eyes.
Right. That's really interesting.
Ridiculous, but really interesting. Yeah.
Actually, a friend of mine has a similar relationship to yours with her husband, and she's told me similar things about the certain women that she's like, no, they're off limits for him, and he knows that this is the kind of women that he can pick, and they both have to meet them. If they want to bring somebody else in, they both have to meet them, like you say. And it's really, really interesting. The rules of the relationship. You get to decide, right? It's your relationship. You get to decide.
Absolutely. There's no template. And I think that's one of the most important things. You have to do this. You have to work it for your own relationship. There's no, just because I do something my way doesn't mean that it's the way.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I feel like that is the perfect ending. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh,
Mo,
yeah.
I really appreciate it. This has been so great. I mean, I knew it would just be such an easy conversation with you. So if people want to find out more from you, I mean, obviously you can email in support@rebellove.com, but if people want to go onto your blog, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's callofthequeen.com. I'm going to be honest, it's actually not up right now, but if you go on Instagram, Call of the Q, you can follow a link and subscribe, like join my mailing list. And I'm going to be doing monthly Google Hangouts. You can get to talk to me. You're going to get bi-weekly newsletters, all that fun stuff. And I'm looking to relaunch the blog by latest new year, hoping to do it sooner, but as you know, there's a lot that goes into it. So
A lot, yeah.
if you want to, even if you just want to communicate with me and have these fun conversations, just go to my Instagram and add your name to the list, and it'll be great.
Yeah, and you can always contact Rebel Love and we will pass it on to Quean Mo. And you can find all the details of this episode and all the links that we've mentioned at rebellove.com/EP11. So episode 11, rebellove.com/EP11. Thank you again so much for being here, and I'm sure we'll do it again.
Oh, absolutely. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Rebel Love podcast, the podcast about love, sex, relationships, and money. If you like this episode, please support us by subscribing and leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. And find all the details of this episode and more at rebellove.com/podcast.